Hi, good morning, everyone. I guess if you're watching this another time or another time zone, it might be evening or afternoon, but thank you for taking the time with me today. I'm here to talk about the future of Adobe Creek National Golf Course. Adobe is one of our highest performing golf operations. In the past 5 years, it's averaged cash flows somewhere between $1 to $1.3 million each year. That's like operating margins in the 30%, which is really good cash flow as a percent of revenue. Adobe Creek is a 27-hole golf course routed through 430 acres of land in Fruita, Colorado, if you're not familiar or haven't been in a while. Going back a little bit, in 2024, the shareholder plan asked me for a comprehensive long-term needs analysis. And then in the shareholder meeting in September of 24, I shared a report that estimated the big ticket needs for each of our golf courses and then aggregated it up to the group as a whole. We made some errors, and what we're going to be presenting today is kind of a revision of some of those estimates with a new plan, because we had started our estimation using a benchmark of Applewood Hills irrigation redo. We had just completed that, and it cost $1.4 million. So when we estimated Adobe Creek, we quadrupled that number and then rounded up from there. I think I'd put $5 to $7 million in our estimates. When we started the process to start to really get serious about the project at Adobe Creek, we were shocked by the estimates we received. We had estimates of $9 to $11 million to just replace the irrigation system. Even back when we were thinking it was $6 million, it was a difficult project to justify. So with this new data, it caused us to rethink our plans entirely. About a year ago, our director of operations, Jason Whitehill, started a master planning process by assembling our managers, Joe Toke, Glenn Manley, and Caleb Anderson, and golf course architect Kevin Atkinson out of Boulder, Colorado. Eventually, we enlisted a land planner and some real estate appraisers to think, kind of what we said was think outside the valve box. The valve box is a part of an irrigation system, so we were thinking outside the box. To really reconsider how we best use our land and see if there's a more creative solution than just simply replacing the irrigation. I'd like to just pause and say, for anybody who suggested the capital analysis to the shareholder plan committee, thank you. You started a process that has brought us to today. And today I'm going to walk you through our comprehensive master plan, the result of the last year of work. And this plan accomplishes a number of objectives. Number one, it reinvests in a strong business that maintains cash flowing land holding. If this plan goes forward, we'll still retain roughly 300 acres of land and a strong business on top of it. It capitalizes on real estate trends to fund the investment needed. It'll allow us to extract some cash from what we're calling our excess land bank, and potentially bring back upwards of $7 million back to the enterprise in cash. And then it also, without really a monetary value to it, but maybe a moral value, it increases the efficiency of our water use while maintaining the water rights, which are ever increasing in value. So earlier I said it was hard to justify reinvesting in one of our top performing operations, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But the reason I said that is that Adobe has numerous large infrastructure problems. And so I want to start by just outlining these problems. Our current 430 acre footprint is kind of becoming a financial liability. The irrigation system is 34 years old and actively failing. In addition to the irrigation, we battle poor soil conditions, a golf course that was built without drainage, and poor water quality. These problems compound to make the conditions even more and more challenging, the playing conditions even more and more challenging to maintain. As a result, we're wasting water and labor and ever fighting a more losing battle. Additionally, the golf course was designed with about 170 irrigated acres of playing surface. By contrast, a normal footprint for 27 holes would be closer to 120 acres of irrigated grass or turf. So the design of Adobe Creek, the sprawling nature of how it's over 430 acres, really exaggerates all of our problems and expenses, both operationally and as we look to reinvest. If we do nothing to solve these problems, a complete infrastructure collapse is inevitable. There's no distinct timeline. We're just band-aiding it, and we have been for a number of years. But at some point, it's going to be hard to continue that patchwork, and the result will be a closure of the golf course. Without water, we don't have golf, and without the golf, we don't have really a use for our water rights. So the result would leave us with holding 430 acres of brown, devalued land. So my proposal is to modernize and optimize. So I'm just going to quickly page through or tab through a few kind of visuals of what irrigation repairs look like. It's muddy, it's hard work to dig into, causes a lot of problems for daily play as we remedy issues. The other problem with our irrigation system, just being naturally old technology, is that we don't have greens isolation. Some technical terms, we have block zones. We don't have any greens isolations. Our zones stick, so they'll just run longer than we want them to. To make repairs, because we don't have those isolation valves, we have to shut down the system completely at times. The pipe sizing for the course is insufficient to water, so it takes us almost 10 hours overnight to water the entire property. And in that high desert arid condition, you have to almost water nightly. There's very little natural rainfall. And then to be more precise with our irrigation, there's few couplers, meaning places where we can plug in a hose and do hand watering. The good news is we do have one of the 9-hole courses does not use PVC for its pipe. It uses a high density polyethylene, or HDPE. We've already talked a little bit about the drainage, which is imperative to moving the water through the property in an efficient way, especially with the types of soil conditions we have there, a heavy clay surface. So there's nowhere for the water to go, and it puddles. Puddled water in warm conditions burns grass, and it almost dies off immediately, as you can see here through these slides. I also mentioned the water quality and storage is a problem. We get water from two sources. One comes down from the Rockies in the form of what we call ditch water. The other is pumped out of the Colorado River and supplements that water. The water has a lot of sediment in it, has a lot of salts, it has a high pH, and all these things make it even more difficult to maintain grass. So, as I said, irrigation is kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of infrastructure at Adobe Creek. This is an example of a holding pond. Paul Graebner wisely created kind of a series of irrigation or holding ponds that filter out the fines, and you can see how muddy it is at the top, the north side of this pond, and then as it gets to the pump house, which is on the south side, it hopefully has lost some of those fine particulates that make the water quality even worse than it already is. Here's an example of what the property looks like in March before water comes in, and April when it has come in. Without irrigation, we don't have golf. As I said before, Minnesota gets about 34 to 35 inches a year of natural precipitation. The Grand Valley gets about 9. So without water, we don't have golf. One of the other results of these problems is that we originally were looking to try and solve some of our turf quality issues, and we enlisted the help of a USGA agronomist to come into an independent audit. Great recommendations came from that audit, but we weren't able to implement it, and we were limited by the tools that we had: the irrigation system, the lack of drainage, the water retention, and so all of this really kind of comes to the conclusion that we're losing a battle here. I mentioned that A replacement will make our system more efficient. So these are slides about that. Ultimately, I think that's very technical, so I'm not going to get into it fully, but there is a lot more data behind it if you're interested in those parts of the equation. So the solution is not to liquidate golf, but to optimize it. We're proposing what we're calling a compact 27. By collaborating with the golf course architect and land developers, our proposal is to shrink our irrigated footprint, shrink the golf course footprint by 30%, moving closer to the industry standard of 120 acres of golf, and use the land that we're abandoning to fund this project. We will tighten the routing, move golf off of our worst performing soils and our least desirable acreage, and refocus our footprint and our resources on basically the best areas for golf, which is closer to the river, closer to the views of the Colorado National Monument. I had a bit of a technical difficulty here, so I'm going to try something new and narrate over video. But this part of the presentation was demonstrating through a use of Google Earth and drone footage just what I'm talking about. So it's taking two-dimensional plans that you'll see in my report, translating that to some three-dimensional looks at Adobe Creek. So Adobe Creek's located between I-70 to the north and the Colorado River and the Colorado National Monument to the south. And the areas that I've described, what are right now titled areas A, B, C, D, E, and F, are fringe areas that we would start our project to test market data, test the ability to work with the city to develop residential property amongst our golf course. So areas D that we're seeing here and areas C, which is what I call Ned's Farm, would be some of the first raw land that we would touch without disrupting the golf course to start the residential development. Areas D and A are going to be sold as large lots with very little development cost to get any sewer, roads. They would be pretty much raw land flips. And there is evidence across the river with the River Heights development that shows there's a really good market for that, as they're selling 2 to 3 acre lots for upwards of $450,000. So area D and area A are some of those more raw lands. Area C and E would actually come with some development expenses. And that all sets itself up for area F, which is actually where the golf course occupies the footprint, and that's what kicks off the Compact 27 rebuild. I hope this matches up with the video. I hope it makes sense. Both the video and the two-dimensional drawings in more detail are all outlined in my report. So hopefully this is just supplemental to what you can read or see on your own. I did talk about politics, and Adobe Falls is a neighbor. There's a 40-acre development that's now on its kind of second ownership, and there are some politics there that we need to do to keep happy neighbors. There may be immediate questions about whether or not the local market can absorb the new housing inventory, and we've done extensive research, both demographics and real estate appraisals of active home sites, land sales, raw and developed. We've had 2 different appraisers, kind of a first cursory high-level market review, and then when we weren't satisfied with that, we had a detailed review of every sale in the last 5 or 6 years, both land, raw, developed, housing sales, as well as a lot of windshield time by Mark Gunther, one of our partners, and his son William, to actually go and scout out the active developments in the area for comparatives. So all of the demographic data says yes, Mesa County and Fruita in particular is seeing a net inward migration from other high-cost markets on the west. Fruita is becoming a premium kind of wealth pocket within the valley, boasting a median household income 24% higher than Grand Junction. And really the best validation is looking across the river at what's called the River Heights Estates, where just raw 2 to 3 acre lots are commanding a $450 to $550,000 premium. Our model has assumed much more conservative estimates for land sales and lot sales, and is factoring in an easily absorbed 15 to 20 lots per year over a number of years. We've been estimating on the low end $155,000 per lot sale. And eventually, as we continue this development process, that premium that we have by now being on a long-term, well-maintained, heavily invested golf course will only go up. Additionally, our political runway looks very clear. We've met directly with the Fruita Land Planning Director, Henry Hemphill, and the city views and has factored Adobe Creek into its public plans for recreation and city planning. So we are zoned for residential, but they really rely on us to fill a recreational need in the town and prize us as an asset within their community plans. Because of this, and to the political goodwill of being responsible with our water consumption, Henry has committed to supporting our project both politically and financially to negotiate development fees down or look for grants or other business districts that we can do to make the finances of this project work. We have not gotten into details because we don't have definitive plans. We've been given just high-level concepts to Henry, and when we get to a point after this proposal and hopefully approval, that would be one of our next steps. But all of that is said because the dollars and cents of this project make sense even with conservative estimates, both on the revenue from the sale of land and on the costs and the development, the city fees, and any other leeway that we would go hard to work on with regards to trying to find ways to save costs, both in housing development as well as golf course architecture and development. The pro forma metrics were done over two kind of time horizons. One was a 10-year, and that using the numbers that were provided both from the market research with an underlying business that we continue to value and increases in value as it's now a well invested turnkey operation, have the internal rate of return, or the IRR, taking in kind of the time value of money at 17%, which is a very strong project return. If a worst case scenario comes, and with land development, a lot of times patience is one of the biggest obstacles. Over a 20-year time frame, if this project just hits some economic cycles or hurdles along the way, over 20 years, this project still has an 8% internal rate of return, assuming we want to maintain a golf course on the remaining 300 or 100 and 200 and some acres of land that we would own. There's an underlying value to that asset that if we don't invest in, we no longer have that value. So with all of this, to move from concept and vision to execution, I'm asking the ownership group today for an approval of this vision. Our next steps are to engage local engineering firms to begin platting areas A and C, and I'll share the video again so you can see it in much more detail, as well as a two-dimensional view that's in the report that I've prepared. We're going to start platting out areas A and C, working with the city to formalize credit negotiations, bring together developers and golf course architects to create the Compact 27 design, kind of fighting over what's best for land development and what's best for golf, while respecting all the other political kind of nuance that we need to with some neighboring lots and neighboring neighborhoods, and really balance our land use for both golf and housing. All of these things sequence together. So at this point, I'm asking for support of this vision and broad funding plans with the understanding that there are safety valves in place if we were to hit roadblocks or large variances. We have the land, we have the market demand and good data to support that this plan makes sense, as well as the backing of the city. So I'm asking you today to secure our assets, both land, business, and water rights, and build a sustainable legacy for Adobe Creek. Thank you.